Hiya, Paul. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing very well, Mike. And you?
Yeah, not bad, thank you.
Okay.
Paul, so in our ambition to start looking at more deeply at news and doing our news analysis on current events, we've come across the story that happened on the 31st of August. It's known as the Joburg fire at 80 Albert Street, which was very much a tragedy, and I think over 80 people lost their lives in quite an horrific way. And we've looked at a couple of news stories that have documented this event. And I think out of those stories, we're starting to, or at least I've started to see a theme. I think there's reports of over 1,000 buildings that are in similar states. And I think the issue is the situation is quite dire. However, let's try and unpack this and see what we find. I'd like to
causes, because I think they're like multiple causes that have contributed to this. Now, the historical sort of policy that was put in place at 94, that time period you referred to, was a sort of privatized approach to housing, emphasizing very limited subsidies and emphasizing what they call the user pay principle, and incredibly thinking that you could get bank credit into an owner-occupied home ownership situation where a lot of previously marginalized people were given ownership of RDP houses, and that somehow this would start a process of wealth generation and self-upliftment. And that's the sort of historical context going back for over the last 20 to 30 years that this degradation and decay happened. There was a hands-off approach from the government, starting with Minister Slovo, notwithstanding the fact that he was General Secretary of the Communist Party in the struggle, but starting with him, there was this belief that privatized housing would actually give people and economic growth and jobs, and government would have to enable it. Now, and one of the NGOs that has played a very strong role, and I know some people there, is the Social Economic Rights Institute, or SERI. And they have, I think, taken up the cudgels on behalf of undocumented and maybe documented immigrants who were living in buildings like this, and possibly in that building, I think,
living
to a
on the
great
streets.
extent.
Another interesting point that I saw during the analysis was a lady called Angela Rivers from the JPOMA, yeah, talking that saying that criminal syndicates are taking over these buildings, which I think which is probably quite obvious. But that also that they're often supported by criminal officials building who turn on a practical level. When it comes to legalities like that, is there under any condition that the city can take a more forceful approach to criminal behavior that doesn't have to be limited by things like the PI Act? Or would the PI Act always have to be a consideration, even when there's obvious criminal activity happening in a situation like that? What are your thoughts on that?
Look, I think the PI Act is very specifically protects it's called the Prevention of Illegal Eviction
And
from
unlawful occupation.
and unlawful occupation of land. Okay, so the PI Act is really a piece of legislation that was trying to protect both the rights of private property owners and the rights of tenants or people who were occupying or using their property happening. And so you're left in a a situation of chaos where about the best thing that some of us can do is to have these discussions about the news and try to understand what has led us here, um, in a broader public debate, and to try and stimulate that debate in a way that more people, particularly those on the ground who are suffering the most, and the ones who are not in corrupt collusion, can be drawn together, and in their collective wisdom might come up with some more immediate and medium term and dare I say longer term solutions.